Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book The Hot Gate by John Ringo, the third book in the Troy Rising series. I started this series towards the beginning of the year when I read Live Free or Die, which I thought was a delightful book with an amazing first portion of the book. I thought the first portion of this book was like one of the best openings to any science fiction book I've read this year. It was a fantastic opening. The rest of the book was entertaining, but that first portion was just on another level. Then after I read this in it was like February or March, I waited a few months, and then in like June or July, I read Citadel, which is the second book. And this book was not great. This was a mediocre book. There were elements of it I enjoyed, and there were elements of it I did not enjoy. And so the book ended up kind of being a wash. There was value to it, but I didn't love it. But then the third book I decided to pick up, and I decided just to finish out the trilogy. And it was entertaining. It was more entertaining than the second book, but it was still equally as frustrating. And there were some areas here that were just incredibly frustrating because there were certain things that he doesn't properly tie up. And I will say I do enjoy this cover. I think this is a nice action-based cover. And the cover was done by Kurt Miller, so it's a nice cover. But this cover is promising like all this action. This book doesn't have any space battle action until the last 100 pages of the book. Literally, it's a 500-page book. You're not getting any space battle stuff until the last 100 pages. So you need to be prepared. Now, once you get to that, the last 100 pages are one big space battle. So it's like he saved it up all for one. But just warning you, if you're thinking this is like, if you started out, you're like, there's absolutely no action in here. It's because it's at the end of the book. This book is following up the events of Citadel. They built the Troy station in the first book, and then they started working on the Thermopylae in the second book, and then they build in between. They build a third station that they're trying to determine what they're going to call it, and they end up calling it the Malta, and so that's the third station that's added here, and this book follows a couple of our main characters. The main character that we follow is Dana Parker, who also made an appearance in Citadel, and we're following her as she is sent from being a pilot back to being an engineer, and she has to deal with all of these engineers from other cultures who do not like her and do not like her style of leadership, and so she has to deal with that. We also again follow Tyler Vernon, who is in charge of all these stations and owns most of them, and he is having to deal with the business decisions of owning all of these and the political decisions, and they're also having to negotiate with the Rangora and the Horvath and all the other different alien species. Now, here's some positives about the book. I really enjoyed the negotiation scenes where the Rangora and the humans are having to negotiate, or the negotiation scenes where the humans have to negotiate with themselves because they have to determine who's going to man this new third station, how are they going to deal with the troops, and how are they going to do with the engineers and all this stuff. The negotiation scenes were incredibly interesting to me, and the political back and forth and the political dialogue was really interesting as well. I also really enjoyed the whole AI subplot of the book, where there's this AI that works with the Glatton, and that's Granatica, and she basically is kind of like bored with her job, and they're like they don't understand why she's not doing what she could be doing at full capacity, and so Tyler Vernon assigns Dana Parker to figure it out, and she does, and it's a really interesting idea, and it really humanizes the AI, and it does it in an interesting way. So I found that very entertaining. I also really enjoyed Tyler Vernon and Dana Parker's dynamic in the book. Tyler is someone, he doesn't really have friends because he's like the richest man in the solar system. And like, so people don't want to be his friend, people want him for his money. And so when he finally finds Parker, Dana Parker, who's just isn't interested in his money, and forms kind of a genuine friendship with him. They form an interesting dynamic, and he's a decent bit older than her, but still they form an interesting dynamic. And it is basically implied that they're going to have a romantic relationship from pretty early on in the book. You're getting the gist of that at the beginning, but it isn't properly paid off. This is where part of the frustration comes in. This book has a big character arc for both of them, and particularly for Parker. And there is a big conversation that she has with the AI, where she basically has this conversation of realizing the feelings that they both kind of have for each other and being like, oh, I guess we do kind of like each other. And then the battle happens, and there's no more discussion of it. Not even in the epilogue or the ending of the book. It's just there's no more discussion of it. And if this was like, book 3 of 5 in a 5-book series, I'd be like, oh, well, there's still 2 more books. They can explore it there. This is a trilogy. It's done. This is the last book. There's no more in this Troy Rising series. So it's just incredibly frustrating to me that he doesn't wrap up their storyline. I would prefer for them to end up together, but even if you aren't going to have them end up together, give us clarity. Give us a firm description. Give us definitiveness. The vagueness of just basically dropping the whole subplot after that whole big bombshell is just very frustrating to readers, especially ones like me who enjoy their sappy romances. Anyway, also, I will say, yet again, John Ringo's space action just doesn't agree with me. There's some space action battles in some books I can read, and particularly the space action in these 2 books, including this one, it's too frantic. It's too technical. He goes so into the details of the terms and using all of these all this stuff, but I don't know what all that means because I'm not in the military. And so it's very hard for me to follow. And there's no glossary at the back of the book. Had this book had a glossary, I could easily flip back, oh, it's this type of a ship, or it's this type of a pilot, or it's this type of a person, or an alien, or because sometimes I don't know whether it's the alien word or it's the military term or non-military term. I just don't know because there's no glossary, and so I kind of just get lost in the battle at the end, and that's a pretty big negative because the battle takes up the last 100 pages. Also, again, it was a problem I had with Citadel as well. There's a bit of engineering talk, and the engineering talk did not take up as much of the book as it did in Citadel. But when it does come up, it's frustrating to follow and feels a little bit tedious. Going back to some positives, I really enjoyed when Tyler Vernon realized when everything's happening with the negotiations and he figures out what the South American delegation is basically doing, and he just blows a gasket and is like, look, I'm going to do this on my own terms and you guys are going to like it or else. I loved that scene. That whole scene, I slowed down and really let it play out in my mind because I thought it was a really, really well done, well-written scene. So there are certainly some great elements in this book that I really enjoyed. There are also some really boring elements, such as the space battle, and also some frustrating elements, like a part of the subplot that gets dropped at the end of the book. That being said, I think it's a little bit more entertaining than Citadel. So Citadel, I gave like a 5 out of 10 or 5.5 out of 10, like okay. It's okay. It's incredibly mixed. Incredible huge positives, incredible huge negatives. This one has those, but I think the positives are a little bit stronger here. I feel a little bit better about this book. So I'd give it like a 6.5 out of 10. So this is a positive review. It's entertaining, but if he had solved the stuff with Dana and Tyler alone, this would have jumped up to like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. And then if the space battle had just had a little bit of ease of understanding, it could have been a top tier book for me. But alas, they're not. So when I look back on the trilogy, I'm going to say that Live Free or Die was an entertaining first book, and that books 2 and 3 were fine. But I'm glad I read it because this is a seminal science fiction trilogy, particularly if you're into libertarian science fiction. And also, I love these covers. I think these are really cool. I like the design of the Troy station that you see in these, so I am glad I read it. But there's so much that frustrates me in this trilogy. I have one more John Ringo book on my shelves. It's his first book, A Hymn Before Battle. I intend to read that one day. It'll be a while, though, probably another 6 months or so. But I intend to read that eventually, and if I enjoy that book, I'll go out and get more of that series. So maybe I'll enjoy that. So if you've read The Hot Gate or any of the books in the Troy Rising series, what did you think of them? Did you enjoy them? Did you not enjoy them? Do you have the same problems I do? Do you not like the romance that's hinted at in this book? Is there anything that you disagree with me on or agree with me on? Let me know all those thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.